it's easier for Daniil. All right. Okay, welcome to this week's FHIR Analytics SQL on FHIR meeting. Today, have a couple of items on the agenda. Let me pull it up. So housekeeping, and then a little update on conference prep, spec writing update from Nikolai. We wanted to discuss next steps on ViewDefinition as an official resource. Any other agenda items from folks?
Should we discuss repeat? Maybe John can present it and we may take a look at the pull request.
Okay, yeah, we can do that as well. All right, well, maybe we'll do that last, just because I'm looking at the list here. Okay, so let's take a look. Housekeeping items, I don't think we have that many. You can take a look at the to-dos. I don't think we have to read them all off. Just looking through them real quickly. If there's anything particularly outstanding other than repeat. Did row index, what's the status of row index?
Still to do.
It's still to do? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Cool. Looking over. Yeah, I don't think there's any real housekeeping that we need to discuss. Okay, so conference. I'm getting around just pinging people on bios, presentation titles, and that sort of thing. I'll take a look in a little bit, make sure everybody's on track. Just also confirming for folks if they're available on which day. So yeah, so just that basic stuff. I'll work with Daniil and Svetlana on that, but I think we're in pretty good shape. But I will take some time to work on that so that we can get to a point where we can start to advertise that a little more broadly. I know we need a couple of things cleaned up, and then we should be able to put out LinkedIn posts and things around that and open up the registration. Any questions on the conference work? No? Okay. All right. Spec, Nikolai.
Sorry, so I'm still in recovery mode. So I see the Graham make the answer. So for the operation definition, we will use canonical resource and then use special extension like operation definition allow type, and we will list view definition there. The link is broken to the FHIR build, but I think I can send the link to discussion here if you're curious.
And whenever we have an actual resource definition, we won't have to do that anymore, because then we'll use it like we use all the other additional resources.
So is it going to be recommended, Gina, for the operation definition on top of custom resource or additional resource? So should we
once it's an additional resource, that's why then it will work like a normal resource is what we're trying to get everything to work like. And so that's the problem, is we don't have that yet. And so that's why this is the way around that in the interim.
Okay, so we will make this workaround, and whenever additional resources will start working in IG Publisher, we will do that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I will update the spec with that stuff as well. I'm thinking maybe about our intro page, because now we not only have a view definition resource, but API and the query resource. Maybe if anybody want to write like overview, because I think the first page should be like overview that we have this view definition resource, the query library profile, and the API. Like just putting all together. If anybody want to write this intro, you're welcome. If not, I will do this with OpenAI.
Yeah, that's cheating. This has to be organic.
Let's call it she. She's writing better than me, so
that's true.
I will just throw the raw ideas and.
Yeah, I can take a crack at that. So I'll put that down as a to-do to redo a revision of the intro page, discussing all 3 of those elements. So I'll take that as a to-do.
Yeah, and I will work on the pages for query and the API.
Okay, good. So that's a spec update.
Maybe Gina, is any progress with additional resources? What the roadmap? Or it's not yet clear where it's going? How I missed yesterday meeting.
For view definition specifically, or in general?
In general, yeah. The publisher support all that stuff? Any dates on?
I don't know that we have any specific dates right now. We are mostly scrambling to get the R6 stuff ready because those deadlines happen first. So
And
we want to make sure that is
when this deadline is gonna happen, like R6 for the next month?
I think the first one is November 1st that we're supposed to have the content done. I'm working frantically on the work group review checklist right now, automation. So yeah, hopefully we can make November 1st.
And
So
to additional resource, we will be listed in the core, or we will be connecting with the IG. So we are not listed in the core, but we will just be connected through IG. Like
yeah,
second,
so that's one of the
so
things
you're
that's up.
using this context terminology with Graham now, yeah?
Yeah. So in general, the problem is we can't link to things that don't exist. So if there's things we know we exist, we can link to them in core. But if there's going to be a new IG a year from now, there's no possible way to link. So what we'll likely end up with is something that's dynamic, or something that says, here are where additional resources are that are relevant to you, and then figure out some way to put some link there that, we can't actually list them because of the way the specifications work, and it's an ANSI normative spec, so we can't be changing text that's displayed or any of that kind of stuff in the spec itself. And so we have to be kind of threading the needle there to say, what can we give to users to make it useful and still comply with the requirements for published specs.
But how it's gonna work? So for example, in our case, so we will publish the SQL on FHIR as IG, where we will define our resource, and then we can use it with the IG publisher, for example, to set the type on operation definition, and the IG publisher will work okay, yeah, because it knows that this additional resource in the context, yeah, of this IG.
Yeah, so there has to be an IG publish that has the actual resource structure definition. And so that's the question I have right now is HL7 isn't going to let those go through FCP, the community process that we are right now. So we have to figure out if we want them in the core SQL on FHIR IG, then we probably need to migrate to HL7 authority, international authority. Or we can ask FHIR, hey, can you guys put an IG that just has these resource definitions in it? And once we have that, either direction, since they're additional resources, then anyone who depends on that package, IG publisher and everything, will just understand them.
Okay, so this is the part that I'm a bit confused about. So I thought that having the additional resources, the ability to have additional resources in other implementation guides, was kind of partially addressing the problem of everything kind of having to go through one process. So I thought that if you had that capability, you'd be able to take FHIR and take whatever IG you trust, or whatever IG you have, and sort of combine the two. I wasn't kind of thinking that there would be additional requirements on IGs in order for them to be eligible to be connected to the main FHIR through the additional resources.
Yeah, so we fully expect that people will modify tooling to allow whatever they want. We can't stop that, and I don't know that we even want to, personally. But HL7 and the FHIR management group need to maintain control over the namespace, and we have to comply with publication guidelines on process for, making sure the meetings are open, and making sure that they've gone through balloting, and make sure they're following the maturity rules and all those different things before they could ever be in core. So additional resources have to get approved by FMG. You have to do a resource proposal. We have to make sure that 10 different people aren't defining something called ViewDefinition. And then we have 10 different definitions of ViewDefinition, and we don't know who is authoritative and who is not, and where's the actual correct copy. For resources that have links out from core specs, we need to go through workgroup approval to say, like, observation needs to be able to link to this in a reference target. We have a syntax for doing that. What compartments do a resource go in? We have an extension that's going to be defined on the additional resource to tell you, for the compartments and all those kinds of things. So all those things have to be, with oversight of the relevant work groups and with FHIR management group.
And did you get to the point when you understand how technically it will look at some kind of registry, or which will be published?
Yeah, we already have one. There already is one. Yeah, the registry already exists. There's a GitHub repo where that all lives.
So all additional resources should be registered in this registry, yeah, with a link to the IG.
And that links the short name with the full URL so that we can index and find them. So that's the piece that we need to figure out, like, we want to register view definition, and where is it actually defined? And that's the problem, that all has to exist under HL7 International Direct things, because it's part of FHIR.
Simple question, I guess, here. I'm trying to get my head around all this. Like, when you say additional resources, you don't mean what's the word? Like any resource, right? You're saying there's a set of resources that conform to a set of rules that are registered under a controlled namespace, and those resources, that very small subset, I mean, that small subset of resources are blessed to be used,
to be called additional,
to be referred from core as an additional resource, right?
Yes. Well, the problem is, and this is the kind of thing like, oh, if only we had a time machine. So the problem is that so many things in FHIR just use the short name. So like we refer to it as patient, whether it's talking about the API surface, whether we're talking about the resource name, whether we're talking about, all those types of things, search parameter targets, reference targets, all of those things use the short term patient. And most of them don't support having a full URL in there because they're not defined that way. And so the problem is, like, how do we list something like SQL on FHIR view definition in that? We can't. We have to give it a short name so that it can fit in the ecosystem. And so that has to be controlled and all that kind of stuff so that you can list it in capability statements and everything else. Now, at an implementation level, people doing this today and just saying, well, it's not actually fully conformant and we're breaking the, we don't care about the required binding to resource types or any of those kinds of things. But right now we're going through, and that's why all those, there's a value set that's being defined, and that points to that same GitHub repo so that you can get the expansion, so terminology services can answer properly and all those kinds of things. All that framework's tooling is being built out.
Yeah, I'm not judging the system. I'm trying to understand the system, and then
can you get a link to this registry, or it's the same that we
joined? I was looking for it right now. I don't remember where it is off the top of my head.
And you said for the value set, there will be special value set which will be updated on the new additional resources.
So already, like if you go to, it should be there already.
Is it going to be like code system or the value set, or both?
It's the value set for things like resource type. So like this guy. So you can see on the current build server, this is the value set that's used in a lot of places where we used to bind to the set of resources. Now there's a new value set called extended resource types. And that has, resource types, old types, and then this additional resources. And if you click on that link for additional resources, it takes you there. Which is the GitHub repo that has the FHIR IG registry lists the current registered additional resources. So for instance, right here, there is someone put in view definition already, probably Graham, but then at the same time, he said, well, yeah, we can't have it in this IG because it's FCP. So while he's tinkering, he put it in there, but it's not authorized, and like we can't actually do that.
Okay. So sorry, I feel sorry for you, Gino, because we're just like grilling you here. But so we're actually not FCP. So I'm curious. So where is the bar going to be? So you're saying that it's actually going to be higher than FCP, but say lower than, you know, stuff that is already kind of adopted by, say, FHIR. Is that what you're saying?
The bar is that it has to be an IG that's going through the full HL7 International balloting STU process. Because we can't have resource definitions that aren't in HL7 International's STU process.
Okay, so think like
forward to becoming a resource.
Yeah.
Now,
okay.
That's not official guidance. That's just what everyone thinks so far, and we haven't actually voted on it. But I'm going to bring it up at FMG to finalize, because the problem is we can't. Like there's no path for external content to be part of core like that.
Okay, so we're talking like something like SDC or Smart App Launch or something like that, which are like HL7.
Yeah, we just have to, if we want to go that route, all it is filing a PSS and then going through the HL7 balloting process before we can publish and all that kind of stuff. Not terrible, but it gives up some of the autonomy that we have now.
I mean, I've seen people go through the process, and it's not like I don't think it's a huge loss to how we operate our group. Like, considering I've seen more about how groups operate, and there is some level of formality, but varying widely. Let's put it that way. So yeah, this might be. I'm just trying to understand the requirements specifically, and I think it is making sense. I mean, we see this. I think maybe some of the different perspectives here is that we see it like as one could see it as kind of a reference, but I think the model that not saying that you particularly have, Gino, but the community has, is that like that reference is part of core, must be controlled, right? Like that is what you're controlling, right? Is that reference in particular. You're not incorporating the IG, so to speak, but you're incorporating that reference. That reference needs to be under. That's when you said, well, this is in core. And I'm like, it's not really in core. The reference, though, right? Like a specific
I understand
reference.
the mental model of the gram, that it's a kind of fragmented core. So when last FHIR, when I ask it, what is your mental model? It means like just splitting the core into the pieces. It's still core, but it's split it into the pieces. So it's not about extensibility, because my first impression was it is about extensibility. But for the Graham prefer like this closed world, and he thinks it's more provide better UX for all parties. So it's like splitting into the pieces. Yeah,
there are a lot of groups that push very specifically for the closed world, and that's the problem. Is we're trying to satisfy that whole side of the industry that says, no, this is a closed system, and you can't just be adding things. You know, when I say, you know, an IPS document or a US core observation or something, it can't have just random things thrown in there that I don't know how to parse. I won't be able to process the resource. And so if you're saying, you know, the justification for this diagnosis is some new resource you've never heard of, that's not a valid, you know, US core diagnosis. You can't use that, or an AU core diagnosis. You have to be able to describe what those things are in a closed system. So
more like about modules than extensions. Yes, so just modularize this.
Let everyone, and that's why the term so far, the leading term is incubators. That it's saying, these are the places where you're incubating.
I don't like this, but okay. So you call it incubator. It means that it's not yet finished. So, but why?
And the problem is
the module may exist forever as a separate module. Yes. So I don't think that like tests should be like eventually merged into. So you like throwing away this stuff from the core. Yeah. So I think maybe think about the module. Module is better than incubator.
Yeah, the problem is module is already a term that's used in FHIR and already has a definition and what it's used for. And so we can't use the term module because we preferred that term, but we can't use it because then everyone will say module is this thing already. And we already have like clinical module and the, you know, all these types of things. And so trying to disambiguate that will probably be painful.
Better still misleading for me. So think about this.
Fair enough. You can still argue the name.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's helpful, at least for me, to understand the model a little bit better, at least put it into my own terms. And
It's work in progress, so it may change.
it may change, but we may have reached that fork in the road that we have been talking about for like, a couple of years now, where we do have to formalize it under a working group and write a PSS and that sort of thing. Like, this is a legitimate reason, right? Rather than a speculative reason, I would suggest. So,
well, there's kind of two things for me is like, there's the ballot process, right? Which is almost like a point in time activity, right? And we could kind of go back and say ballot SQL 5 v2, right? Or, look at 2.1 or whatever. So there's that process and figuring out how that works and doing it. But the other part is like, requirements on how we run this group, which when we looked at FCP like that, that some of those requirements went to like how we run the group and all the rest of it. So I'm wondering like to what extent those two things are related, and would it be possible to like say ballot a version of the spec and keep running the group as we're doing it now, or do we have to start looking at becoming adopted by a working group and doing more formal meetings and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, so the biggest things that would be different if to change the project like that are the calendar needs to be on the HL7 calendar, which is annoying but doable. You need your sponsoring work groups, and potentially, you need to advertise for interested work groups and all that kind of stuff. So people will say if they're interested or not, and that adds a little bit of overhead, though we've been pushing on the work groups to take on some of that, so they've been doing less. And then the biggest thing is votes. That changes to the spec need to have JIRA tickets and need to have votes on them. As far as what it means day to day, not a ton if you don't want it to. As long as there are tickets for things, a lot of things like the bulk on FHIR IG, like that's being worked on right now. All the work happens external, and then we do block votes. Like, here are 30 dispositions, everything's ready to go. Does anyone have a problem? And 99.9% of the time, no one has a problem because all the people who are interested were working on the thing. So it's just sending a block vote every now and again to say, here are all the approvals we wanted. And sometimes people argue, because sometimes they do, but most of the time no one cares. Because the people who are working on the thing are the people who are working on the thing.
Right. They've already come to consensus before the vote happens, essentially.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll say it works that way in FHIR. Every work group is a little different. And so I would push sponsored by FHIR because I know that that's how we do it for this type of stuff. That some of the other work groups like O&O goes through in very much detail. Like, you pretty much can't do the block vote. You have to go through every single ticket in detail and have discussion live on the call in order to resolve it, because they have people who only view things on the calls. So, but sponsored by FHIR, so that's it.
I mean, I think it's doable because, I can imagine like, so this work that we're doing right now, so we've got an API piece and we've got a couple of other changes to the spec. I can imagine that it wouldn't be that much work to drive those things through some tickets and a process and all the rest of it. So, yeah.
I don't think that you have to create ticket for every change, or you have to, Gina. I think the guys are just like some leader just making all the changes and then somebody commenting or like creating issues. So you're not creating for every change.
You're supposed to have a ticket for every change.
Every change.
And in particular, like, your change log is supposed to reflect like, here's a change that was made and here's the ticket on why it was changed. That said, tickets can be a little gray area, loosey-goosey. I don't know, whichever way you want to say it.
But is it really true? Because I see the Graham can jump and like just write 3 pages without any ticket and then discuss it.
No, there is a ticket. And that's the point, is that sometimes is like add authorization hinting to subscriptions. That's the ticket. That was the disposition. We said, yes, we want to do it. What does that mean? Oh, it means defining extensions. It means code systems, value sets. It means figuring out the structures. It means writing up documentation. Sure, There's a ticket that said I was going to do all that, and that's it. But there is that ticket that I can go and say, yeah, we added authorization hinting, and here's the ticket for why.
But like you said, like, when does a change become a change? So you've got all the work happening over here. So we might spend 6 months kind of chatting about it, doing prototype implementations, all that sort of stuff. It's not till we get to a certain level of confidence with, say, the API or something, that we would probably drive it through this process, right? We would be kind of in draft mode for a while before that, and then we kind of minimize that formal stuff, but by really only putting things that are at a certain level of maturity through it, right?
Yeah, and there you can either say, it's in a branch and it's not merged into main, so that you have the ticket before you merge it, or that's why there's that checkbox when you file a ticket that it's pre-applied. So the only issue with pre-applied is, if people have things they want to discuss and add, you have to be willing to go back and make more changes. But I don't think that's a problem for anyone here, is saying, if someone comes back with valid additions or concerns or, things like that, obviously we would want to change them. And so then you can even file the ticket with the pre-applied checkbox already and say, well, here it is already in the main branch.
So how does it
Okay.
work with something like, maybe we could pick on, like, say, bulk data, for example. So they've got their CI build, right? And then they've got their last published version. So does this all happen before it goes into the CI build, or does it happen on some other branch again and then get promoted to the CI build? Like, what's kind of the trigger?
Everyone does it differently, so that's something that's not standardized. I personally prefer to do branches and merge things in only after they're voted on, because I hate undoing things that someone comes back and finds a problem. And then you say, oh, crap, now I have to go and figure out how to undo this part, but I've already made other changes on top of it, and now there's all those things. So I prefer to get things voted on first. There's other people who do everything and then file the ticket, and here it is, it's in the main branch. And then if people disagree, they go back and re-edit it.
But the
Either one's
ticket
fine, either one's fine.
should be in Jira.
Yeah, the tickets need to be in Jira, but you can't get the Jira until we file the PSS.
Yeah, I posted the links. So that's a pull request I've got for a batch of changes going into the FHIR spec, and that's what it looks like coming up as it's a branch for CI. So it does get built because you've got that branch there.
Yep.
And so you can look at it, you can review it, and then in this case, when Bryn's happy that I've made all the changes appropriately, there's only one among that set that's a pre-apply.
Yeah, and that's why if you look at some of the tickets, they're very detailed in what they say, and some of them are like, add sort. Like, all right, sure, let's add sorting.
And then have you this ticket, so then the group reviewing these changes, make voting, you just recording who voted and who was on the meeting, yes, and then you can merge like the...
Yeah. Yeah, so all of those tickets in this case, apart from one, have been already discussed at committee and also voted on, with just the one that's in a pre-apply state. I actually tag them as with a grouper of applied, and so it's not the applied to close it out, but then when Bryn's finished and he's happy and merges it in, then he just goes and clicks the applied, the real applied, not just the group applied. So that means people know that those ones are actually in the branch where it is and stuff. But like Gino said, different groups do it differently.
Yes, but the vote has to be officially done by the work group that's sponsoring.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Now, that said, when there's things like this, we can make this call an official call as long as there's a co-chair available. Then that's it. And even when there isn't a co-chair available, I know I've in the past been granted temporary co-chair before I was co-chair of FHIR, so that we could have all the subscription stuff, because they didn't want to tie up the entire FHIR call going through subscriptions. So they said, no, vote on the stuff there. People will be interested. They can follow it there. Don't chew up all the time here. And so same thing, like, I'm usually here. I'm fine with doing that if that's the route we want to go. And if not, anyone else can apply. We can always use more FHIR co-chairs. So
Yeah, that's what happens with SDC as well.
Co-chairs. So
Yeah.
how co-chairs appear in the world? So it's a voting on the HL7.
If you're interested, you message one of the co-chairs and say, "I'd like to be a co-chair." And if the majority of us think that you would be an honest addition and not just doing it to be able to put that on your resume, then we do a motion and vote for it ourselves and make you a temporary co-chair so that we don't have to wait for the next election cycle.
How many
you're until the next election cycle?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
How many co-chairs already there?
So FHIR, for instance, has 6 right now.
6 co-chairs.
But that's misleading because Graham is a co-chair, but he never chairs or scribes or anything. Josh is a co-chair. He does sometimes chair, and he sometimes scribes, but more often. Yunwei is a co-chair. He does not chair, but scribes. Corey is a co-chair. He'll scribe, but not co-chair, usually. And then Lloyd is a co-chair. He cannot scribe, but he will chair meetings. So, like the other day, like there was a meeting that had Graham, Lloyd, Josh, and so I was chair and scribe. I'm like, we have 6 co-chairs, and I'm only one on the call. So we can always use more.
Yeah, Lloyd used to chair the SDC calls.
Yep.
But the minimal amount is 1, yeah, or 2.
To have a work group, you need to, if you want to start a new work group, there's a whole process. On a call, if you're saying you only need 1.
Okay.
Yeah. Making a new working group is a much more involved process for good reason. There's a lot of infrastructure and a lot of cost for HL7 to have those. So they'd prefer to house things under existing work groups if possible.
So maybe we should start sort of converting this into like to-dos or actions to kind of progress this, because I'm not sure if we'll sort this all today, but it sounds like we do want to kind of progress it.
Yeah, it doesn't, I mean, it seems like this is the only path in some sense if we want to be in the additional resources category, right? And that's clear. So, and we do want to be in the additional resources category. So, Gino.
Yeah, I will say there is the other option of saying, FHIR, please make an IG just to have the additional resource, and we're going to have the IG separate from that. And then when you want things done, you file tickets against them, and you come to FHIR and talk about whatever you want to talk about to get things done that way. You know, again,
Right.
we can pitch it.
Yeah. That seems like not less control exactly, but less like what we do today, I guess it puts it that way, right? Because it would be sort of under the auspices of someone else, not that we don't know all you guys, but like it wouldn't be under our auspices, so to speak. So rather than doing that, kind of like throwing it over the fence and have be in that process, we incorporate more structure into our process. And I don't know, Nikolai, John, what do you think about that? But to me, that seems like less of what we were interested in than what we were discussing.
I just wanted to clarify that that's not the only option. We can't find another route.
Which one do you recommend, Gina? Just play by the rules?
Personally, I think filing the PSS and making this an official project shouldn't be too onerous.
Yeah.
If it is, then we need to be pushing back on FMG and HL7 to say this is too onerous. So if that's too much of a lift, then we should be highlighting those things and taking them back up the chain to say, fix this.
Yeah, and just to confirm, to be really clear, Gino, it would be a project under the auspices of the FHIR work group. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So it would be an official project.
I'm sorry?
It would be an official HL7 project sponsored by FHIR. And the next version we would do would be like a HL7 namespace IG. Is that what we're saying? Yep. I agree.
Yeah,
when you file the
I would
project,
love to. Let's do this.
yeah, when you file the project, we ask all the work groups for people who are interested in being co-sponsors and all those different things. And so I'll say, like FHIR, we know that we are interested in sponsoring, but at the same time, if INM or someone else wants to come and say, oh, we also want to co-sponsor, then there's just additional administrative work that happens. But we've been pushing the work groups to take on all of that work instead of pushing it back on the project teams. Because before people were saying, we're interested in all the projects and you have to come check with us before you can publish. And it's like, well, you don't send anyone to the meetings, you don't do any of the work. No, you don't get to say you're a sponsor.
Yeah, I think we've had this discussion a number of times over, well, we've been doing this for over 2 years, I think now. And we've come to kind of different positions over that time, but I think things have changed and we are at a different point in the process now. It feels like a good time, especially now that we're looking at the API stuff and in closer integration into the FHIR spec. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, Nikolai, you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. We can socialize this a bit, but I don't think, any of the core group would probably, think otherwise. So I will take that on, at least the socialization part. And then let's just talk about practical next steps. Gino, I know you mentioned a couple of them. To me, my mind, the first one is PSS. Adam Culbertson has joined us. Thank you, Adam. But he's in the. This is something he is learning. So Adam and I, and whoever else wants to be a part of this, can learn it together.
I just want to,
PSS,
make the point that Gino decided to add himself as a person of interest to the scheduling IG, which I was quite excited about. So
I did.
Nice.
I thought you wrote something of like, I would like to follow the scheduling IG or something along those lines.
Oh, FHIR.
Okay, so FHIR, I guess.
I was chairing the FHIR meeting when we discussed it, so FHIR is interested in it.
All right. Well, okay, fair enough. All right.
I'm not opposed to it personally. It's just, I was just chairing the meeting when we were writing that comment.
All right, then I'll temper my enthusiasm as it's just FHIR, not Gino personally interested in.
If I had another, I have to bump it up. If I had another 80 or 90 hours a day, then I could be personally interested in everything. But
There should be a hardest working man in FHIR award every year.
Yeah.
And,
no, that's Graham. And
that is Graham. Well, it would be second hardest working man in FHIR, right? And then it would be more competition.
I would have to build my list. I don't know. I don't agree. I'd build a list, but
all right. So PSS
in top 3. That's definitely
in the top 3. It's like a group award. It's like a. There's no rank ordering. It's like hardest working people award. Okay, so PSS number 1. I think that's the document. That's the artifact. Then what else? I think that's, as far as I understand, is the entry point.
Yeah, the PSS is the first step, and then once we have the PSS approved, then we do an IG proposal. And again, same thing. It's something that already exists, so it's a pretty straightforward IG proposal process. But then once that's done, that's it. We have to convert, meet the requirements, but that's it.
Right, and then we just kind of get practice, get some real world understanding of the requirements in terms of day-to-day kind of meeting structure and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And then we start focusing. Again, this is not. We don't have a timeline, so to speak, on this, but we can think about like ballot cycle and what those next deadlines are. And speaking of which, I know we got a little bit more time. What is the next ballot periods moving forward?
So, we do the 3 a year. So it's the January cycle, the May cycle, and the September cycle. The January cycle, we couldn't make anything for, and I don't think I would push for it anyway. We're trying to get as few people as possible to ballot in January so that everyone focuses on the R6 ballot. Balloting in, if things are ready, in even May, or if not September of 26. All sounds very reasonable.
I mean, I expect it sounds for us and what we're doing. I'm thinking of like V2.1. I mean, May obviously is quite a while away, so that should be no problem. question that brings to mind for me is, let's say we're at a December conference, like, how should we describe, let's say we go through the process, it gets all started, next, couple of months, how would we describe the maturity of, or the version of SQL and FHIR at that point? Is there any like restrictions on the language that we could use there?
I mean, to be technically correct, there are that we start talking about like STU and ballot and CI build and all that stuff. I don't think it would be any different to how you describe it today. Right now, there's the CI build, and if we want to do a package, we do a build. And same thing, like we can do a snapshot. We can ask for an official snapshot publication, even without a ballot, even without anything else, and just make a snapshot, like we're doing with cross version. That right now we're doing snapshot builds because those aren't ballot, those aren't anything, but we want a stable build. So we do a snapshot and that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the way we were describing it was like milestone release 2. I actually haven't thought about it, but we called milestone 1 last year. I wanted to iterate that to milestone 2, just making sure like there aren't requirements that we are important, but we don't quite understand.
Yeah, there are, like, when we actually go through the process, the things about like addition versus STU cycle versus all those things, like, I'll be honest,
Yeah, I
I don't
understand.
understand those rules. I just know that when
Understand.
something comes to publication, people at HL7 HQ say, no, this word needs to be that word and that word needs to be that word, and we change them.
Yeah.
So
Within the formal process, I understand. Like we'll have to follow
Yeah.
all the terminology rules, but like outside of it, like that was the thing
There-
that came to mind.
I can look up on TSC what the official guidance is. There's been some feedback because they were trying to make sure that regulatory things aligned with what we recommend people say, so that like people used to use addition and then, addition starts showing up in regulation, but then it's not in the label and then all weird stuff like that. So there is official guidance somewhere, but I would need to go look it up because it's kind of
Okay. Well, it's not top of mind for you. That gives me a little comfort. I just wanted to understand. So, okay. All right. So PSS, IG proposal, those seem to be the next artifacts.
So we could we could aim to create a PSS by the next meeting. I can help with that. I guess all we need is kind of what is a PSS, but even better, here are some examples of PSSs, and then we can just go away and make it, right?
I mean, I don't know if mine's any good, but I can try to dig up the one I just submitted. It's basically a Jira
Sure.
ticket.
A lengthy Jira ticket. And I know there's guidance on this. So yeah, Gino, Gino, if you have those links, share them around. John and I can certainly work on those. Yeah, it'd be great to have by next week's meeting, just so we keep this ball rolling.
Yep, I'm finding them. Here we go. New project, start here. There we go. HL7 Essentials. So there you go. New project, and this is terrible documentation, I think, personally. And so definitely having someone who's gone through it recently helps. And if there are things that are just horrifyingly bad, please, please, please give us that feedback, because most of the people who do these things are people who do them regularly. And so they're just like, oh yeah, this form doesn't work, it's fine, you just fill out this instead. And I'm like, that's impossible for anyone else to know. So I've been slowly pushing changes forward whenever that happens. But there's project proposals home that has, how to create it and the button to draft a new one and all that kind of stuff. But you can see there's comments on them. So there's the starting point at least. And then there's the calendars. I'll post like that link just for reference, because you were asking about that earlier. Like that has the dates for the 2025 ballot. And if you look in the navigation bar, it has, like if you want, these are wrong. That's the wrong link. That's why I meant to post this link, 2026 January, not 2025 January. If you can ballot in 2025 January, that would be impressive. But
it's your time machine that you need, Gino.
I asked for that like 3 years ago and still hasn't delivered. So There you go. And then that's why that has
Okay.
the link for May and September and everything else as well.
Perfect. I think that looks
Cool.
doable.
All right. Sounds good. So we're coming up on time. Oh, we didn't get to talk. I don't know if you want to take a minute or two to talk about repeat directive, John.
Yeah, sure. That's all good. I think that was a conversation that we needed to have.
Yeah.
Let me just share my screen and I'll give a bit of a quick overview for. So repeat directive, what is the problem we're trying to solve here? So ViewDefinition basically has everything except, a way to actually deal with recursive structures and so things like questionnaire response particularly, so which is actually a fairly large source of data as SDC starts to take off and all this sort of thing. I've had some numerous people coming to me and saying, how do we do this? This is pretty ugly and all the rest of it, because you've got data that's actually potentially of an arbitrary depth, and with SQL and FHIR, you kind of have to do all this explicit unnesting and kind of tightly coupling your view definition to the levels of in your data and all that sort of stuff. So I just went on a bit of a experiment thinking, well, how could we do this better? And that's where repeat directive came from, and it's in the CI build, but it hasn't really been properly validated, I would say. Where are we?
Use Control F.
Okay, so the way that it basically is proposed to work is that you can put this repeat directive into your view definition, and you can have one or more paths in the repeat directive. And what it will do is it will go down the tree, collecting the results of each of those paths and union those all together, and then take the selection from that, basically. So in this case, so in questionnaire response, we've got items in the questionnaire response, and we'll just quickly look at the structure and just.
Yeah, it's flattening the same way you would with a questionnaire response or in elements within a structure or all those kinds of things, essentially, right?
Yeah, so in questionnaire response, we've got item and we've got item.item, but we've also got item.answer.item. So you can't just say, go down item.item, because there's actually like a little bit of separation between one of the other paths there. But they're all items, right? So they all look the same. So the selection is the same regardless, regardless of whether it's item or answer.item, or maybe it's not, and that's fine. But this is kind of what I came up with like the most flexible way to do it. And so that's in the spec. It's implemented in the reference implementation. And the question is, can we implement it kind of cross-platform in a relatively simple and reliable way? And it is quite different to implement this in something like the reference implementation, which is like a programmatic implementation, than it is to do it in like a SQL transpiler. Because if you want to do this in SQL, you've got to think about how you do the recursive aspect. So we're kind of, that's kind of a work in progress. So we're working on pathling. We can also work on the soft SQL Server one that we've just done recently. And I think, Nikolai, you were looking at
we will
what
Postgres implementation, yeah.
So have you sort of had a think about that at all, how you might do this in Postgres, or if it's a clean mapping into JSON path, or what would be involved there?
Yeah, we will definitely can do this with the C, but yeah, but we will try to do it with the JSON path. So I think it should be possible, because the JSON path, at least Postgres JSON path, has some recursive structure with this asterisk. We not yet tried to express, but yeah, I hope it can be much more efficient than with the CT.
So that's the quick summary.
Yeah. There's a question, I think, because we have this some ambiguity, and which should be resolved if in the same node we have both, let's say, repeat and for each. So we need to set up the order how it's processed. Yeah. So, and it probably should be stated explicitly. Yeah, we can do this with test, but so I think that repeat first, then for each. Yeah. And like we have a for each, and after the for each the column is applied, yes, but repeat will go before for each, and if on the same node you have a for each, so you do the repeat and then you do for each and then you apply columns. Yeah. And that's maybe a
Good call
from me. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, if anybody else has any thoughts about that, just kind of, I think there's a running thread on Zool about this, so any feedback is certainly welcome.
And it's
Yeah,
kind of
sounds good.
Yeah, FHIR pass repeat function. Yeah.
There's actually a repeat all, so there's a repeat and a repeat all in FHIR path. I think one of them is like a union semantics and the other one's combined semantics. And I think this is actually kind of more similar to repeat all, but yeah.
Right. I think let's have you and Nikolai, try to implement and see what the outcomes are of that. I was just thinking if there's anybody else who's doing SQL transpilation who might be interested. I know Dan is interested in getting back to working on FlatQuack in the next couple of weeks to months. So he might be someone who would be interested in another implementation of this, or at least a trial to see.
So looking at that sample you've got there, John, would you be putting a parent link ID or something into that as well? How would you deal with that sort of story?
Good question. I don't know off the top of my head.
Because
I'm
a lot
only
of
one
those sorts
coffee
of
in
things
today.
you have groups. Yeah, anyway, all right.
Yeah, the select is a cross join, so you probably can put two expressions.
Yeah.
And the first expression, which will only have column, will be cross-joined with what's repeated. So probably that's how you can access the parent.
Yeah.
But I don't know. No, maybe not. But
that would be a good extra example, I think. Yeah.
Actually, one that's just as familiar for you, John. Code system with child concepts.
Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, the code system is recursive.
Yeah. And everyone thinks of, and it's quite clear in the code system, this is the parent concept and this is the child concept. Whereas with questionnaire, it's a bit harder to see that, oh, this is the link ID from the parent or the link ID from itself. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Like maybe ICD chapter and ICD code or something.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have a think about it.
It wasn't saying that this is a bad example. I was just saying there's another example where you want to have the structure in the example too. Maybe a second example rather than replace it. Yeah.
Okay. Good suggestion. All right. We're a little bit over time. So, okay. I think we have to-dos coming out. I will definitely post the notes this time around. I didn't last week, but I will post the notes because we have some serious to-dos. All right. So, all right, we'll call it a day. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you, Gino, for all your insight.
That's what I'm here for.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm just watching.
All right. See all of you. Bye.